So we are reading Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. We are on chapter 2 of the book, page number 9 and page number?
Page number 1920 of the PDF. Chapter 2. How to use this book. This book is written primarily for those who are interested in self-understanding and self-revelation, and the new healing method that is sweeping across this country, the healing art of laying on of hands. The work presents an in-depth study of the human aura and its relationship to the healing process, both psychological and physical. It presents a comprehensive view of a way of life towards health and growth. It is written for healthcare professionals, therapists, clergy, and all those who consider themselves aspirants to better physical, psychological, and spiritual health.
So literally speaking, this book is written for people like us, okay, including all the kind of different kinds of professionals who are there in this world.
If you wish to learn self-healing, this book will be a challenge, for as outlined here, self-healing means self-transformation. Any illness, whether it be psychological or physical, will lead you on a journey of self-exploration and discovery that will completely change your life from the inside out. This book is a handbook for that journey, both in self-healing and in the healing of others.
So this is very beautifully said over here, right? If you want to change something that is happening to you, you need to change the process with which you are operating. Otherwise, it is not going to change. So again, we come back to our standard example that if you are using the process to make aloo jeera, you cannot expect aloo dum. So we have to be able to change ourselves to create change in our lives. So we need to transform ourselves to transform our lives.
For professional healers, in whatever discipline of the healthcare field they practice, it is a reference book to be used throughout the course of years. For the student, it serves as a textbook to be used in classes with or under the supervision of an experienced healer. There are questions at the end of each chapter. I suggest that the student of healing answer them without looking back at the text. This means studying the text and doing the exercises that are included in the text. These exercises focus not only on healing and seeing techniques, but also on self-healing and self-discipline. They are focused on balancing your life and silencing the mind to broaden your perceptions. This book is not a substitute for classes in healing. It should be used with a class or in preparation for classes in healing. Do not underestimate the amount of work it takes to become proficient in perceiving the energy fields and learning to work with them. You will need direct hands-on experience and verification of those experiences by a qualified teacher healer. Perceiving the human energy field takes study and practice, but also requires personal growth. It takes internal changes that increase your sensitivity so that you can learn to differentiate between internal noise and subtle incoming information that can only be perceived by silencing the mind.
So we are in a very, very good position as far as this is concerned. Okay. So the last line, it takes internal change to increase your sensitivity so that you can learn to differentiate between internal noise coming from the small guy and subtle incoming information that comes from the big guy, right, can only be perceived by silencing the mind. Now, we know very well that when we go into the excursion workshop and we are accessing states of consciousness like F10 and F12, automatically the mind stills, the mind gets silenced. All of us who have attended the program have experienced it, right? So when you still the mind, you allow that subtle information to come in. Now, also what happens is that we have a range of perception. Now, all the stuff that we are doing over here, we were talking about, using the pendulum to check the chakras, for example, in the 7 chakra program that we just did. What is that? That is increasing our perception ability of the chakras, for example. So the more you can increase your perception level, the more subtly or the more effectively and efficiently you'll be able to sense the imbalances. You will be able to sense where harmonizing is required, where the balancing is required, where things are not working as they should be working, right? So then you can work with it. If you're not aware of something, you cannot work with it. So the game over here that we are playing, and that's the game that we are playing in awareness throughout, is increasing or broadening your ability to perceive. So she says over here, they are focused on balancing your life and silencing the mind to broaden your perception. So as the mind gets silenced, our perception starts to broaden, and that is what we are looking for. So again, naturally, if we can learn with a teacher, if we can learn with a person who can perceive very well these fields, automatically you learn better. I have seen this happening over and over again. If a person who knows something just touches you while you're doing that particular thing, you will become more efficient in it, because there's a transference, the transfer of energy and information starts to take place. But having said that, we are going to go through this book. We are going to attempt to do the exercises. Let us see what manifests out of it.
If, on the other hand, you have already begun to perceive beyond the normal sense perceptual ranges, this book can be used as verification of those experiences. Although each person's experience is unique, there are general common experiences people have when going through the process of broadening perceptions or opening their channel, as it is often called. These verifications will serve to encourage you along your way. No, you are not going crazy. Others are also hearing noises from nowhere and seeing lights that aren't there. It is all part of the beginning of some very wonderful changes taking place in your life in a perhaps unusual but most natural way.
So what is it saying? That as you broaden your perceptions, you will be able to have verification from the book. Now we have seen one thing, like even when the Monroe Institute process started taking place, people were going into those states of consciousness and they were coming back and reporting what they were perceiving, right? Based on that, Robert Monroe started to discern that, okay, if you go to F10, this is what you would experience. If you go to F12, this is what you would experience. But we are constantly growing with the experience. We've got a lot of tools. We are constantly growing with how we can use the tools, right? So automatically we are constantly growing all the time. So this is another step in that process of growth, of broadening our perception, of increasing our ability to perceive. That is what we are basically looking at from here. And of course, we all know, we've been talking about all this, that today when people said, I hear things and see things, people used to think that they are crazy, right? And most of us who are joining awareness programs will be considered crazy by most of the other society people. But that is not what we are looking for. We understand that these things are real. These subtle energies are real. We can hear things which are not beyond the range of normal perception. We can see things which are beyond the range of normal perception. This is something which is already real to most of us who are over here.
There is abundant evidence that many human beings today are expanding the usual five senses into supersensory levels. Most people have high sense perceptions to some degree without necessarily realizing it.
So this is very important. Everyone has this intuitive ability. The only thing is that we don't realize that we have this ability.
Most can develop them much further with earnest dedication and study. It is possible that there is already a transformation in consciousness taking place and that more people are developing a new sense in which information is received on a different and possibly higher frequency. I did. So can you. This development in myself was a slow, very organic process that led me into new worlds and changed my personal reality almost entirely. I believe that this process of developing high sense perception is a natural evolutionary step for the human race, leading us into the next stage of development, where, because of our newly gained abilities, we will have to be deeply honest with others. Our feelings and private realities will no longer be hidden from others. They already are automatically communicated through our energy fields. As everyone learns to perceive this information, we will see and understand each other much more clearly than we do now.
So again, this is very important. As the ability to perceive starts to increase, nothing remains hidden. If you have the eyes to see, ears to hear, nose to smell, tongue to taste, feeling to feel, nothing is hidden, right? So then as soon as we understand that nothing is hidden, then we have to start shifting towards the truth. Because if we are going to say something which is not the truth, the other person will automatically perceive it. So this becomes very important here. Okay. Now, this is something that we are looking for even when we are reading power versus force, that using that technique in power versus force, you can discern the level of consciousness from which that thing is being operated. You can get to know whether someone is lying or someone is telling the truth. And it's all done with the physical body, right? So the body knows. Now, if the body knows, then you technically know. It's only that you're not aware of it. So as our sense perceptions start to increase, as we start becoming aware of it, nothing will remain hidden. So you cannot hide from anything, right? You will know. And if you know, everyone knows. Why? Because we are connected to everything around us through the morphogenic field. The microcosm is in the macrocosm. The macrocosm is in the microcosm. So everything is interrelated and interconnected. So everything knows everything. It's just that we are not aware of it. So of course, it's going to bring shifts in the way that we are living our lives.
For example, you may already know when someone is very angry. That is easy. With HSP, you will be able to see a red haze around the angry person. To find out what is happening with her on a deeper level, it is possible to focus on the cause of the anger, not only in the present, but also on how it relates to childhood experience and to her relationship with her parents.
So this is again very important, right? When we start perceiving, we don't get just simple information. The information comes in various layers. You can actually perceive where it started from, where it manifested, where it is going. And when you heal, you can actually see it healing. We see this regularly when we are doing biofield tuning. A certain trauma or something happens when we are in the first few ages, right? In the years between 1 and 7. And then we tell the person that, see, this is what happened here. And now this has caused a problem in every stage of your life. So going forward, because you had a problem when you were growing up at the age of 4, you have this problem recurring in your life. And let me tell you, 99% of the time, the person agrees. Simply because that thing is replaying. Till you don't deal with this issue, it will replay. Plus, what she says over here, very, very, very important, relationship with the parents. This is something which again and again comes up. if you are not complete with your relationship with your parents, this will keep causing problems in your life. So we have to have clarity in our relationship with our parents. Because ultimately, if you really understand this, we are here because of our parents. If our parents wouldn't have been there, we wouldn't be here. And we are made from their ansh, right? So we have a very powerful resonance with our parents. So if we are not complete with our parents, nothing gets completed in our life. And this is coming in all modalities that I am experiencing or have experienced. And continuously we are experiencing.
Under the red haze will appear a grey, thick, fluid-like substance that conveys a heavy sadness. By focusing in on the essence of the grey substance, you will probably even be able to see the childhood scene that caused the deeply rooted pain.
So now this is also, again, this is something that comes up in biofield tuning also. Okay. And some really stark stuff also starts coming in. I've had experiences when we are doing the biofield tuning that I can actually see the person being beaten up, being molested by people in their younger ages. And then that pattern keeps repeating in their life. So over here also, when you get that sense perception, you're able to perceive what has caused the problem. Where is the sadness actually coming from? What is the scene that manifested, which resulted in the problem? You can actually see it when you're working with these higher states of consciousness.
You will also see how that anger is harming the physical body. You will see that the person habitually reacts in anger to certain situations when perhaps crying is a more useful emotion to release in order to bring the situation to a solution.
So when you see the problem and you're operating from that high sense perception, you will be able to see what will rectify it. You'll get a sense of that. And if that person starts doing that process, then the rectification starts to take place. In the 7 chakra process, we are using the pendulum to understand that which of the chakra is blocked, and then you can figure out that why it is blocked, what is the way that it is blocked. And then now Aisha has really given us a beautiful chart. We can actually see that, okay, what are the statements that you need to make to be able to harmonize that particular chakra. And then you can actually test immediately whether the chakra is rectified or not. Then the question becomes whether it is holding or not. So then you can actually work with it. Okay. So again, over here, there is also a question over here, says you go into a reaction. So we are constantly talking about patterns, right? Where you get stuck in a situation where something triggers something in you. This is also called an amygdala hijack, where the old memory triggers a reaction with you without your using your intelligence or intellect to be able to discern whether the same reaction is warranted or not. So most of us have these patterns, which is again something we look at in the excursion workshop and the other workshops. And we constantly have to monitor if there is a pattern, if something is repeating in our lives, we need to pay attention, because the universe is saying that this is something you need to work with. So when we work with it and transcend it, then the pattern stops repeating. So she says over here, person habitually reacts in anger to a certain situation. So that situation is the trigger which makes you react in anger. The moment you transcend it, that situation will stop having the power over you to make you go into a reaction. Yes, Sheetal, can you start your video, please, whenever you want to say something? Sheetal, you've raised your hand. Yeah. Unmute.
Ask her, like one of my friend,
Hmm.
like this, she is always complaining, whatever I do, nothing will success. You know, मुझे कुछ मतलब मेरे साथ ऐसा ही होता है, मेरे मतलब मैं कुछ भी कर लूं, कितना भी कर लूं, यही होता है, कुछ भी अच्छा नहीं होता है. So this is also one pattern.
Correct, absolutely. So the
Okay.
pattern will keep repeating until she puts a process in place which will allow her to transcend that pattern. Now, when you look at it, what we were reading in power versus force, there are attractor fields which are generated, right?
Okay.
Now, one thing is a fact that wherever your attention is, energy will flow there.
Okay.
Okay, now if she's constantly saying that I'm never a success, I'm never a success, then she's giving energy to that particular pattern to manifest again and again. So
Okay.
she needs to shift her attention to a pattern which is working for her rather than depleting her. Now, when she is making that statement, which side of the grid is she in?
She is on left
She's
side.
on the left side.
Yeah.
Will any kind of manifestation take place from the left side?
No.
So if she herself is keeping herself on the left side, so she is creating more disasters in her life constantly. And she is the one who's creating it, but she will be blaming the circumstances.
Yeah.
So she is not taking, so this is again something we learned in Zero Limits, where you need to take responsibility for yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because for everything she start, मेरे आज ऑटो वाला नहीं आएगा, आज मेरे साथ ही ये मेड नहीं है. मतलब for
So
everything
she is creating the problem. Ask her to join the excursion workshop.
Definitely. Sure, I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Jyoti, you want to say something? You've unmuted.
No, sorry.
Okay.
Using HSP, you will be able to find the words that will help that person let down, connect to the deeper reality, and help her find a solution. In another situation, however, you may see that expression of anger is exactly what is needed to heal the situation.
So now this also becomes important. When we are operating with these higher sense perception, you get a feel, okay? You get to know whether something will work or it will not work, whether it is actually helping you in that situation or not. Now, for example, someone is in grief, right? When we look at the scale of conscious evolution, if someone is in grief, let us say they are in 30, if I'm not mistaken, in the level of consciousness according to power versus force. Just let me pull up the thing. Yeah, okay. So let's say grief is at 75. Now, if this person starts to become angry, the level of consciousness has increased because the level of consciousness of anger is at 150. So there is an improvement. A person who's in grief is at a lower energy field than at someone who's in anger. So maybe the anger is the solution to the problem, because that problem which is keeping the person in grief can get transcended by becoming angry, right? So this becomes important. Maybe the anger or any thing like that is actually increasing your ability to get out of the problem. So then it becomes okay to use. Till you go into a higher state of consciousness.
Once we have come to this experience, nothing is ever again the same. Our lives begin to change in ways we never expected. We understand the relationship between cause and effect. We see that our thoughts affect our energy fields, which in turn affects our bodies and our health. We then find we can redirect our lives and our health.
So again, this becomes important, right? We are constantly saying, watch your thoughts. In all the Monroe programs, one thing is constantly there, that watch your thoughts. What state of consciousness are you operating from? When we shift the way that we think, the way that we are discerning things, the way that we are observing things, the way we are connecting to things, we can create shifts in our lives. This is very, very important, right? Watching our thoughts. Every action is preceded by a thought, right? So what is your thought will result in the action. But if you have thought about it, you have already acted to a certain extent. So if you're thinking of killing a person, you may not take the physical action, but your body gets the feeling that you're going and killing that person. So watching our thoughts, what we are thinking, becomes extremely, extremely important, because it affects our field and then it affects our health also.
And there we've already then made the karma, we've already committed a karma, no? By just thinking of it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You've already taken an action. And
even
then
if even if we haven't killed the person, the thought itself has been created a karma.
Correct, naturally. So you've already created see, every thought we have is getting transmuted into the universal energies. It is getting transmuted, right? So it is affecting everything else. Every thought of ours is affecting everything around us, whether we like it or not. And of course, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So something is bound to come, right? So either you counter it, you ask for forgiveness, you clear it from your field. So every thought, we have to be very aware of what we are thinking about.
Thank you.
We find that we create our own experience of reality through this field. The HEF is the medium through which our creations take place. It can then be the key to finding how we help create our reality and how we can change that reality if we choose so. It becomes the medium through which we find ways to reach inside to our deepest being. It becomes the bridge to our soul, to our inner private life, to that spark of the divine within each of us.
So this is exactly what we are doing in the Monroe process, right? Going into a deeper state of consciousness, going into a higher state of consciousness, connecting with our true state of being, creating that stillness in our mind so that we can access that deeper. We can start working with the big guy rather than working with the small guy all the time, right? So it's all a matter of expansion of consciousness.
I want to encourage you to change your personal model of who you are as I lead you through the world of high sense perception into the world of the human energy field. You will see how your actions and belief systems help create your reality for better and for worse. Once you see this, you realize you have the power to change the things you don't like and enhance the things you do like about your life.
So again, we actually have the power. We are creating our reality ourselves. When we start taking responsibility, we start connecting to our high sense perceptions, to higher states of consciousness, we can actually direct, we can actually start having a very, very profound effect on the way that life starts to occur to us. Okay. Life starts to occur to us. So how are we observing what is happening to us? How are we accepting what is happening to us, right? The same situation can put you on the left side of the grid, and the same situation envisaged or perceived from a different state of perception will put you on the right side of the grid. So what is the state of perception that you're looking at things that is happening to you starts becoming very, very important. So all our actions, all our thoughts are affecting whatever is happening with us.
That takes a lot of courage, personal search, work, and honesty. It is not an easy path, but it is unquestionably a worthwhile one. This book will help show you that path, not only through a new paradigm for your relationship to your health, but also for your relationship to your entire life and the universe you find yourself in. Give yourself some regular private time to experience this new relationship. Allow yourself to be the light of that candle that universe.
So again, the point is, as you start going into these higher states of consciousness, you start becoming a light. Okay. Now, when you start becoming a light, you'll radiate it. So you'll find that people around you will also start getting affected the moment you start shifting your state of consciousness, right? Naturally, it's not an easy because any kind of transformation will require change, and any change takes you to the unknown. So you're going to go into unknown territory, and you have to embrace it, integrate it into your system. So making the unknown known is the game that we are playing over here. And naturally, when you do that, your way of observing things, your perceiving things will all take a shift. So we call it a paradigm shift, right? So there's a big shift which is going to start coming into your life the moment you start accessing these higher states of consciousness.
I have divided the book up into sections that focus primarily on an area of information about the human energy field and its relationship to you. As you have been reading, this first section deals with the place of the auric field in your life. What does this phenomenon that has been described by mystics for so long have to do with you? Where does it fit in your life? Of what, if any, use is it? Case histories have shown how knowledge of this phenomenon can change the face of our reality. Jenny, for example, realized that she needed to take significant healing time for herself before she could bear children. Jenny took her health and her life into her own hands, where it always was anyway, and changed a possibly unpleasant future into the much happier one that she preferred. This kind of knowledge can lead us all into a better world, one of love born out of deep understanding, one of sisterhood and brotherhood, where those considered enemies become friends because of that understanding.
So this becomes important. The moment you start going into these states of consciousness, you start to perceive things which are beyond our normal sense perceptions. The way you look at things will change. The way you perceive things will change. The way you take things will change. Your understanding levels of what is happening is going to change. So even in the 7 chakra program, she talks about levels, that where are you operating from? Which chakra are you operating from? And every chakra, when you're operating from that level of, or that chakra, will lead you to behave in a particular way with other people. And as you start to understand and realize that, and start raising your level of consciousness, operating from the higher and higher and higher chakras, then automatically the way that you're perceiving things, the way you're doing things will shift, right? So enemies will become friends. Why? Because you come from a state of understanding. You start really realizing where they're coming from. We are able to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, which was the topic of this other book that I read in 1977, How to Win Friends and Influence People. The key thing I got from that book was put yourself in the other guy's shoe. What would you feel if something was happening to you? Whether you would like it if what you are doing to that other guy. And that actually created a big shift in my life, at least, right? So over here, she says the same thing. When we increase our sense perceptions, enemies can become friends because you start understanding them better.
Part 2 deals more specifically with the energy field phenomena. It describes the phenomena from the point of view of history, theoretical science, and experimental science. After these are dealt with thoroughly, I then proceed to describe the HEF from my own view, which is a mixture of observation and theory combined with those conclusions of others found in the literature. From this information is developed a model of the HEF to use for both psychological work and spiritual healing work.
So she says very clearly, first she's discussing the history and the science, and then she's saying things from her perspective. Now, every one of us is operating at a different level of consciousness, right? So our ability to perceive will be different from each other. So she's saying very clearly over here that I've taken my perceptions, taken the conclusion of others which are written in literature, made a khichdi, and then I'm presenting it to you.
Part 3 presents my findings on the relationship between the HEF and psychodynamics. Even though you may not have been interested in psychotherapy or personal process in the past, you will find this section very enlightening in terms of self-discovery. It will help you understand not only what makes you tick, but also how you tick. This information is very useful to those who want to go beyond the normal bounds of psychology and body psychotherapy into broader views of us as human beings and of our energetic and spiritual reality.
So she's using a high sense perception. And I think she talks about where the energy is in the brain and all that also, to be able to really understand where we are operating from. Right. This is something that we can see with brainwave pattern when we do the mind mirror. What are the frequencies of vibration being generated in the brain? With that, we can actually discern what state of consciousness you're operating from. So in this way also, when we are increasing our sensory perceptions, we can actually start to discern where a person is operating from. This can be done when we take aura photographs, which is something that she's really talking about. Seeing the aura, perceiving the aura, and perceiving where it is coming from. So we could actually perceive when we took the aura photograph, where the colors are coming, what are the shades of the colors, what is the formation which is taking place, and get to know a lot about the person. So we can actually land up doing the same thing if we can increase our sensory perception.
Frames. These chapters give specific frames of reference for integrating the human energy field phenomena into practical psychodynamics. Drawings of HEF changes during the counseling process are presented. For those interested in self-discovery, this chapter will introduce you to a new realm where the reality of your energy field interactions in daily life will take on new and deeper meaning. After you read the book, you can find practical ways to make use of energy in your relationships with loved ones, children, and friends. It will help you understand more of what is going on in the office, in the interactions with those you work with. Parts of this section are very technical, and the general reader may want to skip some of the material, chapters 11, 12, 13. You may want to go back when you have more specific questions about the functioning of the HEF.
So naturally, once your sensory perception expands, you're able to see what is happening with the other person. Why is the other person behaving in a particular way? What is happening with them and what is the effect that I am having on the situation and the situation is having on me? Once you start operating from that kind of awareness, then you put yourself into a position to be able to transform it. And of course, in the book, this book is very technical, but we'll attempt to go through it, whatever it is, and to the best of our ability, we'll attempt to integrate it. Let's see what happens as we go ahead.
Part 4 of this book deals with the whole issue of increasing our perceptual ranges. What that means on a personal level, on the practical level, and on a broader level in terms of changing the society we live in. I give clear explanations of the areas in which perceptions can be broadened, of the experience of that broadening in each area and how to do it. I also give a theoretical framework in which to place these experiences and the broad scale implications for humankind as we as a group move into these changes. These changes not only affect us as individuals, but they change the entire fabric of human life as we know it.
So again, that saying that if a butterfly flutters its wings in Brazil, it affects the entire universe, right? So whenever we change ourselves, whenever we change our thinking, it changes the entire universe, because every thought that we have is affecting us and everything that we are connected to, and we are connected to everything. So when shifts take place in us, take place in the fabric of the universe.
Part 5 deals with the process of spiritual healing. I call it spiritual healing because it is always linked to our innate spiritual nature. This part presents healing experiences and techniques in relationship to the HEF. It contains drawings of the auric field changes during healing. It clearly delineates techniques of healing on the different layers of the HEF. It combines the information on broadened perceptions given in part 4 with healing to enable the healer very effectively to initiate the healing process in self and others.
So, sorry. So in this book, she talks about various layers of the aura, right? Each of the layers is dealing with a certain aspect of how we are living. Now, if I am healing in layer number 1, but the problem actually exists in layer number 3, then whatever I may do in layer number 1 is not going to affect the problem that we are facing, right? So using this process, we can actually start to discern where the problem is coming from and go to the site of the problem to harmonize it or rectify it. So it enhances our ability to sense and perceive and to get to the core of the issue rather than just working on the periphery. So then it allows us to work on ourselves and also work with friends and people who are around us, whoever we want to work with.
Because most of these techniques are not simple to learn, you will probably have to study them in a class. Written explanations of something this specialized serve to help the student to become familiar with the subject material, but do not claim to teach the techniques. You must have personal instruction from someone who knows how to do this healing before you will become proficient in it. Verification of your experience by a qualified healer is very important. To become a professional healer takes a lot of training in dialectic, practical, and personal work. Everyone who really wishes can become proficient in healing and channeling. You need to study and practice to develop your skills as in any other profession. I am sure that someday in the not too distant future, there will be certified training programs in laying on of hands, healing, and channeling. If you wish to become a professional healer now, you must find one and become an apprentice.
So again, sorry. So again, what is she saying? That to learn or do anything, we need to connect with it. We need to practice. And see, now this is the challenge that I've been facing all my life, is that I don't find enough gurus, right? Teachers who can really teach you. So I've made technology my guru. Now, by the Lord's grace, we've got a lot of technology and awareness, and we can also use biofield imaging. We can use the GDV. We can use the biofield tuning process. We can use the Lecker antenna. Now we can use pendulums. We've got biogeometrical processes to be able to discern what she's talking about. If we have healed something, whether it is actually healed or not, that is the testing process that she's talking about. Now, what did the guru do? When you did something, the guru could actually perceive whether you have done it right or you have not done it right. This is also the reason why what we were talking before the session, that whenever now, from now on going forward, whenever we do a program, we will carry out a review session where all of us who've attended the program will again get together as a group for practice sessions so that, and then we can help each other grow. Two things I have seen, that either you have a guru guiding you or you have a community which you can create for yourself in which you help each other. Now, naturally, we don't have those gurus. So we create the community. When we create the community, we can help and support each other in growing. Okay, so that's the basis on which this is exactly what we are talking about when we are talking about these practice sessions that we are going to start having.
Part 6 gives a detailed case study of the healing of David, in which the client takes an active role in his own healing. It shows how client becomes healer. Part 6 then focuses on practical self-healing methods and suggests the next steps for those who want to practice healing, showing how to re-establish health and balance in your life and how to maintain. The personal developmental stages of becoming a healer are described, which then lead to the questions: what is health? Who is the healer?
So again, this becomes very important. Actually, the body heals itself. You heal yourself. What the healer is doing is only creating a scenario. It's only creating a space in which that healing can happen, right? So when we are looking at it from the somatic intelligence perspective, Zia keeps calling it holding of space, where a person, the healer, holds the space in which the healing can start taking place. So naturally, all of us actually heal ourselves. So once we can start learning the techniques, we can start increasing our awareness, we can actually start healing ourselves, which will be very beautiful. I think this will be the most important part of the book. We can continue.
Chapter 3, a note on training and the development of guidance. I believe it is very important for the healer to have a lot of technical training, counseling methods, anatomy, physiology, pathology, and massage technique, as well as some knowledge of acupuncture, homeopathy, and nutritional and herbal cures.
So again, everything is interrelated and interconnected, right? As we move from one modality to the other, we find that they are all interrelated. So knowledge of all the modalities will automatically make you more proficient. So there are two ways of doing something, right? One is to become extremely proficient in one item, and the other way is to become proficient in many items. Now, this is something that we talked about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where the poor dad says become proficient in one thing, but the rich dad says that learn many things so that you broaden your perspective starts to expand. So whenever anything comes, you can pull from different modalities and create a modality which will work in that given situation. Now, if you're only proficient in one thing, then that modality may not be working. That is why in awareness, we'll see that we are touching so many different modalities so that we can learn, we're broadening our perspective that this is available. And then when you want to use something, you are in a position to start using it because you know that this is available. Okay, so this becomes very important.
These other counseling methods are almost always combined with the laying on of hands, either by the healer or other healthcare professionals who are working on the case. The healer must have some knowledge of these methods to understand how they dovetail to make a healing a whole one and to be able to communicate with other people involved in the case.
So now this becomes very important again. Okay. Now suppose you are having an illness. Now what is happening today? There's specialization in the allopathic field. Now one guy is dealing with your diabetes, another guy is dealing with your lungs, another guy is dealing with your liver, another guy is dealing with your intestines, another guy is dealing with your brain, right? Now if all these guys do not combine themselves and work together, you're bound for disaster, right? Because what is good for diabetes may not be good for your brain. What is good for your brain may not be good for your digestive system. So having a knowledge and information about all these modalities can give you an overview of what needs to be done, right? And which modality is affecting the other modality and which one will work and which one will not work. So this is the same as in allopathy. It's the same over here also, that if you're a healer, you can perceive that, okay, this will work better for this situation or this will work better for this situation. And then if it is not within your skill set, you can actually direct the person to another person who has that skill set which you don't have. So guidance can come in various ways. It's not that only you have to heal. You can guide the person to the right person to get healed also.
Various other healthcare methods may be indicated through the channel of the healer. The healer will need to know anatomy and physiology to help interpret the information she is receiving. Above all, the healer should be able to work with other medical professionals to help a client heal herself.
So again, if two of the practitioners are fighting with each other, you're in for disaster. So when all the healers, all the people who are looking after your health can come on the same page, it is always better.
My training included a normal BS in physics and an MS degree in atmospheric physics from a state university. I did research with weather satellite instrumentation for NASA for 5 years. I completed 2 years of training in bioenergetic counseling, 1 year in massage therapy, 2 years of anatomy physiology, 2 years of specialization in altered states of consciousness, specifically in deep relaxation techniques, 1 year of homeopathy, 3 years of core energetic training, 5 years of path work, helpership training, and several years studying with various healers around the country, both privately and in workshops.
So maybe about 15 years, I think totally. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15. So maybe she was studying for 15 to 20 years.
I also practiced working with people and their energy fields privately and in groups for more than 15 years. Since I was already a practicing counselor, the means by which people could see me for healing was set up. People just made appointments with me. More and more people requested healing rather than therapy, and the counseling practice slowly became a healing practice.
So again, so one practice morphed into the other practice. So basically what was happening? People were coming to her for something, but she was using other information that worked and it transformed the entire process.
I finally had to leave the psychological counseling work to others who focused on that, and I began to accept people only for healing. During these years, I was also involved in various experiments to measure the human energy field. Only after all of that did I feel qualified to practice healing in New York City and to begin to teach classes and workshops myself. To become a healer is no easy task, just as it is no easy task to do anything well. One needs spiritual as well as technical training. One must go through self-initiated tests that challenge the weak parts of one's personality and develop one's creative focus, longing, and intent. The healer may experience these tests as coming from the outside, but in reality, that is not true. The healer creates them to see if she or he is ready and able to handle the energy, power, and clarity that she or he is developing in her or his own energy system as she or he grows as a healer. This energy and power must be used with integrity, honesty, and love, for cause and effect are always at work in every action. You always get back what you put out. That is what is called karma. As the energy flowing through you as a healer increases, so does your power. If you put any of this power to a negative use, you will eventually experience that same negativity coming back at you.
So again, we come back to the process of what is the consciousness with which you are operating, right? Whatever you are radiating, you are in resonance with that. So whatever you are in resonance with is bound to come back, right? So you have to be very clear about what you're thinking, what are you doing, what are you behaving, what is the state of consciousness you're operating from. And to become a real good healer, your clarity of thought, your clarity of action is very, very important. So if you're doing something depleting, that depletion is bound to affect you. The idea is, again, we come back to Celestine prophecy, where we give energy to each other. We are not going into power game. Now, as a healer, if you want to start becoming the power game player or the control drama player, you're creating a problem for yourself. This is one of the reasons why tantrics have developed a bad name. They were using their power, They were using the spiritual energy to do depleting things, right? And ultimately, it comes back to the person concerned. We have to be very, very careful about this. And I'm saying this from tremendous amount of experience. It's not because I know I've got kicked in the butt many times. I've really got kicked. Okay. So you have to be very careful when we are going into these states of consciousness.
Sorry, I missed that bit where you said who's got a bad name because they've been using their power?
Tantric people.
Tantric. Okay.
Okay. Tantra is a very powerful, it's a very, very spiritual activity. But they've got a bad name because they're using that power to do depleting stuff, right? And that's the image that has come into the when we read Agora, the left hand of God, we actually discussed this issue also, right?
Yeah. That's right. That we discussed it then.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can stop here. It's 2:15. Chimla, okay?